This video is going to cover how to use transitions to make your writing flow and sound much smoother. Transitions. Well, I guess we should start with what are transition words? Transition words are words or phrases that directly tell the reader the logical relationship between one idea and another idea. So, for example, Marcos loves to go swimming in the ocean. However, his parents won't allow him to do that. The word, however, is a transition because it shows the relationship between the two ideas in the sentence. And it shows that they contrast or are different from each other. So when we use transition words, they help make our writing flow and read smoother and much more coherent. And you can use transitions in one of three ways: between one clause and another clause within a sentence, between two sentences, or between groups of sentences or paragraphs. So if we're going to talk about within a sentence, we're talking about joining two clauses. So one way to do that within a sentence is to use a transitional word or phrase. So for example here, Marcos is a great swimmer. Furthermore, he is very good at scuba diving. So we can see here that our transitional phrase is the word furthermore. And grammatically speaking, to properly add it into the sentence, we use a semicolon, the transition word, followed by a comma. But that's how you use transition words between two clauses within a sentence. You can also use transition words to connect two sentences. And to do that, you normally put your transitional phrase in the beginning of the sentence followed by a comma. So for example, Marcos is very athletic. In fact, he plays 3 sports at school. So this shows us kind of the relationship between the two. So it's almost like giving us that cause and effect. Because he's athletic, he can play 3 sports at school. We get that through that transitional phrase, in fact. When we talk about between groups of sentences or using transitions in longer writing, you need to realize that these are super important as well because they show the reader the logical relationship between one paragraph or group of sentences and another. And it really helps your reader know when you are changing from one idea to another. So as you write, you have your introduction and then you have your first body paragraph. And then notice how we have a transition between each body paragraph. So in addition, furthermore, it lets your reader know that you are adding to what you're saying, but possibly changing the subject a little bit. So it's really important to connect ideas between paragraphs with these transitions, as well as using them within sentences and between sentences. So there are different relationships that transitional words can create. I'm going to review a few with you. Just know that there's quite a few more out there that you can look up if you are struggling. So the first one that I want to talk about is transition words that create kind of that relationship of addition. So those would be moreover, furthermore, in addition, and besides. So for example, Marcos loves to ski. Furthermore, he likes to fish. So that's kind of saying like in addition to liking to ski, he also likes to fish. So it adds that relationship of addition. You can also create a relationship of reinforcement or emphasis. So those transitional words or phrases could be indeed or in fact. So for example, Marcos plays basketball. In fact, he plays every Saturday. So that adds emphasis on how often he plays the sport of basketball. You can also use transition words that create a relationship of exemplification. Okay, for example, for instance, in particular. So that's just a fancy way of saying, I'm about to tell you an example, reader, so pay attention. So these are really good examples to use if you are providing evidence, quotes, paraphrases, and summaries in your writing. You will want to use some of these transitional words that create that exemplification relationship. So here's an example. Marcos enjoys outdoor sports. For example, he likes hiking, skiing, and fishing. Okay, you can also use ones that create a relationship of contrast. So, however, in contrast, on the contrary, on the other hand, These are really great when you're talking about counter arguments, the opposing side, or things that are different. Those would be the transitional words or phrases that you would want to use. So, an example of one being used: Marcos enjoys scuba diving. On the other hand, I think it's an expensive sport. So, it shows the difference between what Marcos thinks and what I think. So, those are some examples of transitions that show contrast. You also have transitional words that create that relationship of result or effect. Consequently, thus, therefore, accordingly, hence, as a result. So you might want to use these if you're trying to explain how something resulted or the effect of something. So Marcus broke his leg, thus he can't play basketball. So it's that effect of what happened because he broke his leg. There are also transitional phrases that create that relationship of time. So meanwhile, subsequently, thereafter. So this is where you let your reader know the order in which things are occurring. And sometimes that's important. So these transitional words can help you with that. For example, Marcos scored a goal. Subsequently, his team won the game. So we know that they didn't win until after he won. They didn't win until after he scored the goal. So it creates that relationship of time. Now, as I said, there are quite a few more transitional words and phrases out there that create different relationships. These are just some of the commonly used ones that I felt like might be useful to you. But remember, it is really important to use transitions in your writing. Use them within sentences, between sentences, and between paragraphs so that your reader can follow what you're saying and the relationships that those ideas and topics have to each other.